Good morning. I was thinking that I'd like to get some questions from the audience, such as it is. Mostly the people who know me and to whom I've personally shared the link to my podcast at this point. But even there, it's been kind of slim pickings, to be honest. And you don't get what you don't ask for. So I'm asking. Send me your questions, your challenges, your concerns, your critique. I welcome it all and I cherish it. You can do it via the YouTube comments, or if you know me personally, you can just, send me a message. All right, so let's get into today's subject, because thinking about the lack of feedback and questions, I realized I did get a question, but I forgot about it. So very bad on my part, and I apologize for it. You will know who you are when I answer it. Hopefully you remember. The question was along the lines of, why are we so reluctant to give negative feedback, to give constructive criticism to people? Why do we hesitate to tell them that what they're doing doesn't sit well with us? Because reciprocity dictates if we should care about their feelings, they should care about ours. Why are we so eager to protect others' feelings when actually that criticism would be good for them? Why do we not apply the reciprocity standard in our personal relationships? Tolerating things we don't like from the behavior of people around us, people close to us, even family, rather than telling them, hey, I don't like what's going on. And the answer is, well, there's two reasons why people behave in a certain manner. It's either a conditioned reflex, an inborn reflex, like a spinal reflex, or it's a choice. Could be free choices, or they could be forced. Now, it's obvious that if a person close to me is threatening me in some manner, and I choose to behave in a certain way, then because of the threat, it's pretty clear why I do it, right? There's no mystery there. So the question is then, why do we choose to do this? Or why do we have this reflex of doing it? Well, it's certainly not inborn, like it's not a spinal reflex. If you don't know what that is, it's a behavior that doesn't even reach the brain. Like if you put your hand on something hot that burns you, your temperature receptors in the skin and your pain receptors in the skin send a signal through the nerve endings up to your spinal column. And the spinal column sends back a response that says, contract the muscles, pull back the hand. It doesn't even reach the brain. Like you cannot stop it by deciding not to do it. So it's not an inborn reflex like that. It's a conditioned reflex. It might be because we are trained. That's what conditioned reflexes are for. For example, an abusive upbringing. Like someone's going to listen and obey their parent because they were conditioned to do so. If they didn't do it, there was a threat of violence, of deprivation, of neglect, or whatever. So that also falls under the category of use of force. It's just not being currently used on you. It's not someone holding a gun to your head. It's someone held a gun to your head in the past, and you're just remembering it. Or even if you're suppressing the memory, you still retain in your subconscious the imprint of that threat, and you're behaving based on it. Right. So then the question only applies to, why would one choose to do it? if you're interacting with the parent, it might very well be that you're obeying them, and it's the past threat that is making you not apply your fair, perfect standards to them, not hold them to the standard of reciprocity, not ask that they care about your feelings if you are to care about theirs. That's very likely the case, unless you were raised peacefully, which very few people are at this point, which is what I'm trying to change. But let's say we're not dealing with a parent. Say we're dealing with somebody else. Maybe it's a parental figure, maybe it's someone in a position of power. We will tend to revert to the same conditioned response based on the traumatic upbringing, because whoever is in a position of power over us, we tend to treat as the parent who had the most power over us ever. But let's say it's not somebody within a position of power. Let's take that case. Well, then it's a value calculation. So if it's somebody, be they in a position of power, but you were peacefully raised, or it's not someone in a position of power over you, it's someone lower or equal in the hierarchy, not higher. And before you ask which hierarchy, any hierarchy, because there's many of them. If it's the case that I'm making a free choice, then it comes down to a value calculation. That's how all free choices are made. What do I have to gain? What do I have to lose from option A, option B, option C, any of the options that are presented to me in terms of how should I act? So if the potential risk outweighs the potential benefit, you're not going to do the thing. And you have to take into account the benefit, the indirect benefit that you will get from doing the thing as well, because helping someone who's close to you, depending on how close they are, benefits you, because the better your people surrounding you do, the better you do. Usually how this calculation goes in this scenario is that they say, well, you say, if I tell them, there's two possibilities. They either take my constructive criticism to heart and they take it for what it is, and they react positively. And we all know how much the majority of people love criticism, right? Or they don't, and they react poorly, and they get upset with me. And so they like me less. First scenario, they like me more. Second scenario, they like me less. Now, the more people around me like me, the better I do, especially if I'm of an agreeable inclination in my personality type, the big five. One of them is agreeableness. The higher on the agreeableness scale I am, the more concerned I'm going to be if somebody around me doesn't like me. So the less likely I'm going to be to risk upsetting them, because this is all a risk calculation, actually. So the value calculation includes first a risk calculation, because it's risk versus reward. And we are very inclined to give risk a lot more say in this equation than reward. We are biased, generally, as human beings, towards avoiding risk. It's more important to not lose what you already have than to gain something you don't have already. You know the expression, the most dangerous persons are those with nothing to lose? That's because they will act. They will act like there's no tomorrow because there isn't for them. They have nothing to lose. For them, the value equation is much simpler because there is no risk factor. If you have nothing, you have nothing to lose. Someone said there's no such thing as FU money. You know the expression FU money? When you have enough money to tell people to go F themselves, and basically you don't care about what people think because you have enough money. Well, I think it was Tucker Carlson who said there's no such thing as FU money. there's just a few poverty. Because as long as you have something, the more you have, the more there is to be taken away from you, or the more there is for you to lose. And so, ironically enough, the more we value the relationship with a person, the more we are inclined to not risk losing it, because we're upsetting them via our criticism, which is meant to improve things. So, between the potential of improving things, which might or might not materialize, and the potential of ruining things because your criticism is not received well, we are almost always inclined to avoid risk rather than to chase reward. The stick is much stronger than the carrot. Why? Because the stick might kill me now. The lack of the carrot might starve me long term, but the stick has the potential to kill me right now. So it's about survival. How do I know what I have right now? The place I'm at right now is better than the place I might get to if I do this thing. Well, I know because here I am. Wherever you're at, there you are. You know, the expression, I forget who said it. It's probably something like Lewis Carroll in Alice in Wonderland. But wherever you're at, there you are. Yes, that is very true. And it seems like a silly phrase. But the fact that you exist in the place, you continue to exist in the place where you are right now, that means it's safe enough for you to continue to exist. Moving to a new place, to a potentially better place, means that it also has the potential to be a worse place. You don't know if survival is guaranteed there. You know it is here. Why? Because you continue to survive. For now, at least. Okay? So, the main answer for this is risk aversion. Another answer would be something that can influence your value calculation is if you look at your prediction of how this will go. Like, what's the probability that the person you are offering your constructive criticism to actually responds positively? Because you know them. The closer you are to them, the more you know them. So you can kind of run a simulation on what their response would be. And if that simulation has a high probability of being something that's upsetting to them and they react poorly, you're not going to do it. Again, value is not there. So the only way you do it is that if the value you could get is bigger than the risk you're taking, then the cost, which is the cost of doing the thing, plus the risk. The cost of doing the thing is just the time it takes you and the effort it takes you to actually say the words or send them the text or call them or whatever means of communication you choose. So that's not big in this case. Right. But the risk, the consequences can be quite high. You stand to lose. Then the question becomes, why would people act in a way that's disparaging towards you? Why would they ignore your preferences while asking you to respect theirs? Well, that's because their value calculation is different than yours. They're much less afraid of losing you than you are of losing them. And it's worth wondering why that is. Because usually, somewhere in there, if it's a family member, usually some trace of a bad childhood there that makes them do this. It's their entitlement as a parent, if it's your parents, right? Or as an elder in the family. I've talked in past episodes about why people think children owe something to their parents and why this isn't true. So, you can listen to that if you haven't already.
The only other possibility is that you're choosing the illusion of the thing versus the thing itself. See my previous episode on this. So you're actually choosing the illusion of a relationship with the person instead of the actual relationship with the person, because the actual relationship isn't possible. You've decided based on past experiences and events and personal decisions that it's impossible to have a real relationship. So rather than face the pain of being alone and not having that relationship, you are choosing to anesthetize yourself with the illusion of a relationship. If that makes sense.
So let me know how this answer was. You know who you are. And by the way, you're the person who was one of the first, if not the first, to tell me while listening to my ideas, hey, you should record these, you should make these public. So thank you for that. I'll always be grateful to you for that. And let me know. We will be talking soon. Let me know how this answer was for you, and if there's anything else I can add. Thank you this time for the question, and I hope to get more questions. If you want to support what I'm doing, ask me questions, challenge me, criticize me, send me some feedback. I love negative feedback. Okay? So, because we were just talking about it, I absolutely love negative feedback. If you have a personal relationship with me, you should already know that I love negative feedback, but there's always the tendency of people to forget that for some reason, because I seem to be one of the few people who love negative feedback, and so the regression to the mean is people tend to forget this about me because I don't fit with the rest. All right, so thank you for the question. You're welcome for the answer, and have an awesome day.